Now that we have our fancy new rounded image views in place, we can use them to create the Reset Game and Leaderboard buttons. The strategy we're going to take is to create a new view called Background View that contains the views that are in the four corners of the screen. And then we'll place that background view behind our main view. Let's give this a try and put together the background view.
All right, so we're going to create a new file inside this views category, and we're going to use the SwiftUI view template. And we're going to call this background view.swift. As always, I'm going to fix my indentation the way I like it. And we're going to think about what we need as parameters to this background view. So the background view, as designed by Luke, displays certain information from the game, such as the score and the round. So we're going to need a binding to that game variable. So just to save some typing, I'm going to go over here and take an example of where I have a binding and just copy that and paste it in. That's the parameter we're going to need. Now, right away, as soon as we put that in there, it's going to give us an error down here because it's saying it's missing an argument. So I'm going to click the Fix Me button and it's going to say I need a binding to a game. So remember how when we wanted to pass a constant into the slider, one way we did that was by typing .constant. We can do that. And then here I can just put in game. So we're making kind of like a game instance only for the purpose of previewing this particular background view. Okay, so now we don't have a compiler error, which is good. So what do we want inside our background view? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a VStack, and it's going to have a top view, and then later on it's going to have a bottom view, basically. We're going to start with the top view. So let me go ahead and make a copy of this, and we'll call this top view. And then we'll delete this placeholder here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a VStack, and inside the VStack right now we're just going to have the top view, and we're going to just pass through our game. Now what we want to do is we'll add a couple view modifiers to this. We're going to want some padding around everything we put inside this VStack, and we're going to want a background throughout here. And the background color we're going to want is the same background color as we defined earlier, which is background color. And we want it to extend across the whole area. So we're going to do .edges ignoring safe area .all. Now this is all stuff we've done before. You may have forgotten about it, but we have covered these things before. So hopefully this stuff is a little bit of review for you. Okay, so you can see here that we have this hello world, which is the top view inside here. It's not filling up the whole screen yet. We'll do that shortly. Okay, so let's start filling in what we actually want inside our top view. So we actually have done some of that work over here. We want these two things inside there. So I'm going to go back here and paste these in, except we want them in a HStack. Okay, all right, so we've got a starting point here. So what we actually want though is we want this to be all the way on the left hand of the screen and this to be all the way on the right hand of the screen. So how do we do that? Well, one way of doing that is Swift actually has a special type of view called spacer. Let's see if I can find that in here. It's under the layout category. So let me show you that again. So if we scroll down to the layout category, there it is, spacer. And I'm just going to drag this spacer in between the two views. And what spacer does is it extends to use as much space as available. So this view has sized itself to be just the space it needs to contain its content. And this view has done the same thing. Spacer will grow to as much space that's available to it. So it fills up all the remaining space, which in effect pushes this to the left and pushes that to the right. All right, so we have kind of a starting point for the top, and I'm gonna get this up to the top later on, but let's start working on the bottom. So we're going to need a new view for the bottom that we're going to call number view, and its job is to show two things. One is whatever is listed here, which we're going to call the title, and then one for here, which we're going to call, I guess, the text to display inside this rounded view right here. So let's create a new view called number view, and it's going to be a view. And like I said, it's going to take two properties, a title, which is going to be a string, and a text, which is going to be a string. And then I'm just going to copy this to avoid typing it, but as every view does, it's going to need a body. And for temporary purposes, we're just going to do color.gray. Now remember, color.gray will fill up to be as much space as it can get, but we don't want it to be that for right now. We just want it to be a preset width and height, and we're just going to do 56.0, 56.0 to start. So basically this should be a gray box, 56.0, 56.0. It does take these two parameters, but doesn't do anything with it yet. That's actually going to be your challenge for the next part. So this is kind of a building block that we're going to need in order to build the bottom view. So let me just copy this to save some time again, and we'll rename this to bottom view. All right, so the bottom view is also going to be HStack, but instead of these two things, they're just going to be two number views. And the first one's going to be score, with the text being a string. That is the game.score converted to a string. And we'll just copy this because we want almost the exact same thing for the other side. So let's see. So we have score on one side and we have round on the other side. So this is going to be round. And this is going to be game.round right here. Okay, so now we just have to modify our background view to contain that. So we want to put a bottom view and pass in the game. And I'm going to refresh my preview so you can see what's going on here with Command Option P. And you can see here that our bottom view is basically this gray box, a spacer, and another gray box. Now we want to push this up to the top, push it to the bottom, so we'll use our good friend the spacer again. And there you go. Now it's looking really good, like we want. So we have kind of the scaffolding for our background view. Now remember, the whole reason we were making a background view is so we can put it in the back right here of our content view. So we don't need this background color anymore, because instead we're going to use our background view, and we're going to pass in our game state variable. And check it out, just with that, we now have that background view showing up behind the rest of our user interface, which is really nice.